Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool are taking on Maribor in the Champions League yet again on Wednesday night in a tie that could have huge consequences for where we finish in this group, because as we know, Sevilla and Spartak Moscow will be playing each other as well while Liverpool are playing against Maribor, and if Liverpool win, it doesn't really matter what happens in that other game, because either way, we'd still have a pretty strong hold on a qualifying spot for the round of 16 in the competition. So a win in this game would be absolutely massive for Liverpool. And given how they played against Maribor last time and how that game went, you'd certainly expect that we get a result here. I mean, I said before the Huddersfield game that I was nervous, that I was really unsure what Liverpool were going to turn up and what kind of result we were going to get. But I really feel like going into this game, we have to get a win. These players, they need to be motivated for this match. So I personally think that we should do it. So on to team news for this match then. Jurgen Klopp had his press conference today and he made a very strong point of the fact that he wants to go with a strong lineup for this game. There was a suggestion that with how weak Maribor were last time out when we beat them 7-0, and the fact that we've had a slightly busy schedule recently, and also with the slightly inconsistent performances of the first team, Jurgen Klopp may want to have a look at some of his fringe players like Oxlade-Chamberlain or Andy Robertson, players like that who maybe aren't getting much of a look in the first team at the moment, to see whether they've got something to offer that the current starting 11 for most games hasn't got. However, judging from Jurgen Klopp's comments, it sounds like he is going to go with the best possible 11 he can have during this game. So he said that Loris Karius was going to start this game. Quite a bit of debate about that. There's been a bit of debate about the goalkeeping situation at Liverpool recently. Obviously, a lot of people not happy with the rotational policy. Me personally think it could be handled a bit better. I don't think it's the right idea at the moment because it is unsettling the defence a wee bit. There were also calls for Danny Ward to take Karius's place in that Champions League spot, because so far Karius has either been, he hasn't really been involved in games. He's been pretty much average, or he has made mistakes like he did against Spartak Moscow when he let in that free kick that he really shouldn't have done. So there were calls for Danny Ward, but Danny Ward is injured at the moment. So Loris Karius will keep his place. There are a couple of players that Jurgen Klopp mentioned might be a doubt for this game. He said Phil Coutinho, who obviously missed the game against Huddersfield, he said that Phil Coutinho is a bit iffy at the moment. We can't quite assess where he is and whether or not he's going to be ready for this game. There's a training session this evening that occurs obviously after the press conference, so I think that will give Klopp more of an idea of who is and isn't able to start this game. He also mentioned Lovren, who was obviously forced out of the Huddersfield game at the last minute. Lovren seemed to be on a similar sort of plane to Coutinho, somewhere where, he's not definitely going to start, he's not definitely out for the count for this game. It's just something that Klopp's going to have to assess closer to the time. And then he did mention another couple of players like Gomez and Moreno, who are carrying some slight knocks, have a little bit of cramp after the Huddersfield game. So while Klopp does want to go with his full strength 11 with the best possible team he can put out, there's a possibility there will have to be some changes for this game. And on a little side note, team news, on a very positive note as well, he mentioned that Adam Lallana and Sadio Mane are due to return to first team training this week. They won't come back before the international break, but Jurgen Klopp is hoping that they'll be fit and ready to face Southampton later on in November after the international break. So that is good news as well. So on to how the team's actually going to line up then. Obviously it is going to be Loris Karius in goal, and then the back four, I think it's going to be Alexander-Arnold at right back, because I mean, first of all, Gomez is obviously carrying that little bit of a knock. There is no point whatsoever in risking him for a game like this, especially when you've got a player as capable as Trent Alexander-Arnold, who handled the away game really well against Maribor and will hopefully have another good game as well, and hopefully another goal as well. Even if it is deflected, who cares? If it's deflected, it's still a goal. It's still a pretty decent finish from Alexander-Arnold in the away game. But yeah, Alexander-Arnold at right back. Then I think it's probably going to be Matip and Klavan. I think it would be a bit silly to risk Lovren for this game, because obviously he has got a past of injuries. He is apparently still fighting through it. He's got to take painkillers and everything, so I don't see why you would risk at all aggravating that. And I mean, Lovren and Klavan, they're fairly similar players in terms of quality, so I think Jurgen Klopp will be perfectly happy partnering Klavan alongside Matip for this game. And then it's a tough one to call at left back, because I thought it would probably be Moreno, especially after Klopp's comments about sticking with his strongest possible 11. But the possibility of Moreno being injured means that I'm inclined to think maybe he'll go for Andrew Robertson in this game. I'm not entirely sure, But if you pressed me, I'd say Robertson, because I just think why risk Moreno, to be honest. If he is available, that's great. But if not, then just leave him out and let him come back in for the game against West Ham at the weekend. And then the midfield, as Klopp said, he wants to go with his strongest possible team at the moment. And I think that's probably going to be Henderson, Emre Can and Jorginho Wijnaldum. Emre Can was obviously left out of the team for James Milner at the weekend. A little bit curious, that one. There was no real fitness issue. So it's interesting to wonder whether or not Jurgen Klopp's dropped him for form reasons, whether he's dropped him because of all this links with Juventus and everything like that. But as we've seen so far this season, Emre Can, he does step up his performances for European matches, especially if you look at the home leg against Hoffenheim in the playoff round. So I think Jurgen Klopp will go for Emre Can in this game and then partnering him with Jordan Henderson and Jorginho Wijnaldum in the centre of the park. And then the front three, I think it's going to be Salah, I think it's going to be Sturridge, and then I think we might see Oxlade-Chamberlain. It's a little bit iffy, that one. I think, again, the Coutinho situation, I think it's similar to Lovren. I just don't see why you would risk him, because he doesn't necessarily need to be involved in this game. He can always be on the bench, and then if things aren't going well, then he can be brought on as an impact substitute. But I just think you want to save him for the game against West Ham at the weekend, because I think that's the game where you really want Phil Coutinho and where he could be hugely important for us. So I think it could be Oxlade-Chamberlain. It could also be Firmino as well, but I get the feeling that Firmino might need a little bit of a rest. And Oxlade-Chamberlain has also shown in his last few appearances for the club that he's been doing really well. He's been performing very well, Oxlade-Chamberlain, in his substitute appearances. So I think it's about time that he gets a start and he gets a chance to show what he can really do from that wing position. So since we last played Maribor, they've played 2 games in their domestic league. They've won both of those games by 1-0, so they're doing all right. They seem to have picked themselves up off the floor after that 7-0 loss. And Jurgen Klopp was talking in his press conference about how he's been keeping a close eye on Maribor over their last few games, and it looks like they might have made a few tweaks to their system in preparation for this match. And the fact that they're winning games 1-0, for me, suggests that they might be employing a little bit of a park the bus system. So that will certainly be an interesting one to watch out for in this game. So as I said at the top of the video, I really think that Liverpool have got what it takes to win this game. I think we really should be blowing away Maribor, and if we bring the same kind of performance that we showed in the second half against Huddersfield, certainly not the first half, that would be disastrous. But if we show that same second half performance over the full 90 minutes against Maribor, then we should win this game reasonably comfortably. So here are my 3 reasons why I think Liverpool will beat Maribor. First of all, I mentioned how I expect that Maribor may actually try and park the bus a little bit more for this game, having seen how good Liverpool's attack is, how many chances they can create if given the opportunity when they beat them 7-0. And also with the game being at Anfield as well, Liverpool have got that home advantage. Huddersfield will want to put in a solid away display, and normally away teams in Europe do sit back a little bit more. But the reason that I think this could help Liverpool win the game is that I don't think Maribor are really the kind of team that are good at sitting back and soaking up pressure, because they were Slovenian champions last season. They're clearly a team that perform at the very top of their domestic league, and they're used to dominating games. So they're not used to having to sit back and park the bus. So unless they're like a Man United, who are a team who are very high up in the league but are also very used to that park the bus philosophy, then I just think Maribor don't really have it in them. And we saw that in the 7-0, you know. You expected that they would sit back, try and soak up a lot of pressure, and they conceded 4 minutes in, which is just a massive crime if you want to take that sort of tactical approach to a game. So I think while Maribor will put a lot of effort into this game, I'm sure, because if they want to have any hopes of qualifying, as slim as they are, or even getting a Europa League spot by finishing 3rd in the group, then this is a game when they're going to have to pick up some sort of result. So I'll expect them to go for it, but I just don't think they've got what it takes to park the bus against us. And secondly, I think should he start, and that is quite a big caveat there, but still, should he start this game, I think Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain could be hugely influential for Liverpool in this match. I mean, I was going to mention Mo Salah for the player that I think is going to have a huge influence on the game. However, Mo Salah, he was a little bit off it against Huddersfield. Obviously, he had the penalty miss. He wasn't anywhere near as involved as he normally is in games. He didn't really get that many chances. And I think he's just a slightly different player without Phil Coutinho on the pitch. You know, Salah, he makes a lot of good runs. He gets into a lot of good positions. And Phil Coutinho is the best player when it comes to picking out Mo Salah in those kind of positions. So without Coutinho on the pitch, he doesn't quite get the ball as much as I think he'd hope. So Mo Salah, I think, might not be quite as influential as he was in the first game against Maribor, where Coutinho was also on the pitch. So I think if Coutinho doesn't start and Oxlade-Chamberlain does, I think Oxlade-Chamberlain could be huge for us, because he's really been showing a lot of signs of improvement. He's certainly much better than he was when he made his first appearances for the club back in September, and hopefully he can continue that upward spiral is the word, upward trend of performances, and hopefully get better and better and bring a really solid performance against Maribor. And obviously as well, he's got a lot to prove because he will want to start getting a starting place in Jurgen Klopp's lineup. And finally, I think the Anfield atmosphere for a European night will really help the players going into this game. I mentioned this for most European matches, in particular the ones at home, of course. But I just think it could be hugely influential on our players because we saw against Huddersfield what happens when the crowd aren't really up for a game. I mean, the first half, it was as tepid in the stands as it was on the pitch. It was just so quiet. The fans really weren't getting going, and it took a moment of actual brilliance from the team itself to get the fans going. Until then, until Daniel Sturridge scored, the people in the stands just didn't seem that interested in the game at all, to be honest. Whereas with this being a European night, albeit against, lesser opposition, it is only Maribor. It's still a European game. It's still the Champions League as well. And you'd expect that the crowd will almost definitely be fired up for it. And hopefully that'll mean that Liverpool come flying out of the traps rather than plodding out the traps like they did against Huddersfield at the weekend. So that is all for today's video. Again, I'm afraid there's no FIFA 18 predictor for this game because, as I said in the previous Maribor build-up video, they're not on FIFA 18, which is a bit disappointing, but oh well. You just, never mind. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. And don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter as well. Bye for now.